Hey guys, here for the weekly question here. The question is, what's the first major news story you can remember living through as a child? It's pretty easy because it was the Challenger exploding. So I was in sixth grade. I mean, that's really like the earliest I can remember of anything. Um, and we were watching it, but I mostly kind of remember watching it, not caring. But we were watching it in my sixth grade room with, man, who was my sixth grade teacher? Mrs. Clark, I think is what it was. Um, and it blew up, and we were just like, oh my gosh. But I remember my teacher crying. Um, like she was just like sobbing, right? Because there was a teacher on that, Christy McAuliffe, I think might have been her name. I think. Yeah. Christine McAuliffe. But yeah, something like that. And so she was on that for some, like they picked a regular person to go and pick some teacher. And so she was on that. And then, I don't know, a minute later after they took off, that thing just exploded and fell into the ocean. And that was a big deal. I remember thinking it was a big deal. But I also, like, if the question is, what's the major news story you can remember living through? I don't know if I remember living through it. Like when you're in sixth grade, you're 12 years old, and you're kind of. I mean, after going home that day, I don't know if I thought about it again. You're just a dumb kid. But I think the one. I mean, I really don't think there were a whole lot that really were like, oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like Bill Clinton and his scandals, or you know like the war in the Middle East. I don't know if I thought that was incredible and that was something I felt like I lived through. I mean, I know for a lot of people that was a big deal, but in my mind, like we were always at war over there. And so now we started another conflict. I just kind of thought, yeah, that's another one. It's still going. I mean, it's kind of been going, most of my adult life, most of my whole life in the Middle East. So I would say the one that I thought that was, or the few that I thought that were crazy, that were news stories, were OJ killing Nicole and what was that guy's name? Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman. Ronald Goldman? Yeah, I think so. Ron Goldman. And yes, I said it when OJ killed those two because that guy definitely killed them. But that was a big case. People were watching it. I was in college. We watched, the whole thing happen. We watched the trial. The whole thing was crazy. The whole world, or not whole world, I have no idea about the world, but the whole nation was definitely like glued to it, and it was on TV all the time, and it was crazy. All the way from OJ, like them thinking he did it, to him running away and trying to go kill himself, all the way through the end of the trial, which I don't know, it felt like a year. I don't know. I don't have any idea if it was 6 months or 2 years or 3 years, but it was a long time. That was a big story. And then the other one was 9/11, of course. Now I would have been older. I would have been 26, 27 when that happened. But that was the first one that you were just glued to the TV every night, and how many people died and how many horrible stories there were, and how many lucky stories there were of people that, had a job interview that morning in the World Trade Center buildings, and they overslept or their alarm didn't go off, and next thing you know, they lived because they didn't make it to that interview. But yeah, that one was crazy for months, of like, how are they ever going to come back from that? The whole New York City downtown skyline was just decimated, and the amount of dust and rubble and all that. I'm just like, how are they ever going to clean that up? And they did, right? And they recovered, and yeah, it was crazy. But those were I guess those were the three if I had to answer, right? Is the Challenger blowing up. That was the earliest one that I remember being a big deal. I remember, my parents' mom was a teacher, right? So that was a big deal for her. It was just sad, but not a whole lot. I would think I was too young, but for sure OJ when I was early in college, um, and then 9/11. I think those were the big three that I think, man, those were, especially the last two. I'm like, those were huge. Those were just something that somebody was glued to. Now the OJ one shouldn't have been. It was kind of sensationalized, but it was interesting and it was crazy. And for a lot of people, that's the first time, and really probably the only time that I've seen um, the inside of a courtroom and see how the whole thing works and see how attorneys work and do everything. So that was interesting. And then the 9/11 one was just crazy. It was just, yeah, nuts and so sad. So many stories, so many people. So it just touched a ton of people. So that's it. So that's my question of the day. So we'll see you next time.